Chapter 6: Copy Research and Copy Testing. The most satisfying reward a copywriter can receive is the knowledge that an advertisement he has written has successfully and demonstrably sold the goods or ideas he set out to sell. There is no substitute in advertising awards or in the acclaim of his fellow craftsmen, which can equal that satisfaction. When a writer produces such an advertisement, it is the result of one of two quite different approaches. Either he has guessed right, or he has based his writing upon an accurate analysis of true facts. True facts is, of course, redundant. A fact is never a half-truth. Great or small, a fact is a whole truth. The purpose of this diatribe is to make a plea. This plea is that the copywriter shall seek to be an honest person in the spirit, as well as the letter of the law. This means that when the copywriter is guessing, he does not pretend to knowledge. He tells his boss or client that he is guessing. The boss or client thus knowingly shares the gamble. When the copywriter is not guessing, it is because, to the best of his knowledge and beliefs, he is basing his writing upon facts. It seems to Aesop Glim that the average advertising man or woman, after a little experience, does a fairly intelligent job of analyzing facts. We have acquired a considerable measure of skill and intelligence in that regard, but we are still far short of intelligence in our willingness to accept as facts information which is often very far from factual. Scientific research indicates the desire to know the truth. A fact, scientifically established, is a fact which is always going to show up in exactly the same way, under the same set of circumstances. A scientist does not proclaim the discovery of a new fact until he knows that that fact can be demonstrated and proved whenever and wherever the same methods are employed. Advertising, as we practice it, is still a relatively young business and still far from a science. However, this does not excuse us for using inspiration or guesswork when facts are available. Nor does it excuse us from ever letting up in our endeavor to make our fact-finding as nearly scientific as possible. When we consciously deceive a boss or client by pretending to knowledge we don't possess, we are guilty of criminal practices. When we deceive ourselves with a too-ready acceptance of half-truths for whole truths, we are guilty of great stupidity. Spiritually, self-deception is really the greater crime. Firms like Procter & Gamble and General Foods don't trifle with haphazard research methods. At all times, such firms are striving in every way they know to make their research methods as nearly scientific as possible. There is no let-up in their endeavor to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They would probably say they could not afford to base their sales and advertising plans on anything less than the most nearly complete knowledge obtainable. But if some of the larger firms cannot afford haphazard research methods, how can any lesser firms afford them? It seems obvious that the smaller the firm, the greater the relative cost of an error. Far too often it is possible for two different men to take the same 1,000 questionnaires, tabulate and analyze them, and come out with answers which differ in important respects. As surely as this can happen, we have evidence that either the questionnaires or the tabulation or analyzing methods of one or both men were wrong. The pitfalls in unscientific research are numerous. The questions themselves can be the wrong questions, possibly because they are leading questions, consciously or unconsciously indicating the answer desired or feared. Possibly because they are embarrassing questions, to which the interviewee has no intention of giving completely truthful answers. Too often the interviewer is at fault, inconsistent in his manner of asking the questions. Too often some young person, unaware of the fundamental importance of his task, has interviewed a dozen people and then filled out 50 or 100 questionnaires imaginatively. Too often an interviewer, completely honest in his intent, has interviewed too many people. Quite unconsciously, he has come to color the answers in all his later interviews. Many a survey, even though honestly and painstakingly planned, has produced an untrue report, because the tabulating was not as painstaking as the planning. The questionnaire and the interviewing may have been perfect, but the tabulating was done inconsistently or carelessly by inexperienced tabulators who were too lighthearted at their work. At this point, Aesop Glim might as well register his belief that research work in all its departments should most often be done by older people, capable of understanding the full significance of what they are doing. This does not ignore the fact that there are some brilliant young men and women in research whose highest aim is to make advertising research as nearly scientific as it can be made. Perhaps one of the greatest contributing causes of faulty research work is the fact that for many firms, research is a now and then occurrence instead of a year-round occupation. Naturally, such a firm does not keep a complete research staff of experienced questionnaire builders and trained interviewers and editors and tabulators. In such a case, economy appears to dictate that the interviewing and tabulating shall be done by any person available. If the seniors in experience are going to build the questionnaire and analyze the tabulation, it may look safe to have anyone available do the interviewing and tabulating. Unfortunately, research is a place where the danger is always greatest of being penny-wise and pound-foolish. When decisions are to be based upon the research, the most elaborate survey full of untruths is not worth even the first dollar of its cost. Whereas the sound research job is worth whatever value the decision itself holds to the firm. This diatribe could be interesting instead of preachy if it were filled with true stories of success and costly failure. However, this is fundamentally a copy discussion. The objective in suggesting that all present-day research is not perfection is to warn the copywriter against the dangers of relying on incomplete or misleading evidence. Most bosses will credit the success or failure of an advertisement to your construction and writing of that advertisement. This gives you the right to demand facts, true facts, as the foundation for your work. This also gives you the right to join the chorus of those who demand that advertising research keeps striving toward the scientific method. Once upon a time, the head of the firm was always the old man. Most often, he had become the head of the firm because he was the oldest, because he had the most experience, and because he had the ability to guess right more often than anyone else. His guesses set the policies for the firm. However, in his own heart, the old man knew that he was guessing. Today, management as management has become more of a science. We frequently see large firms headed by relatively young men. Quite often, they come into a firm as president, with no previous experience in the business. However, the modern executive, young or old, has a number of resources which the old man did not have. One of the chief of these is fact-finding through market research. The information he may lack because of inexperience in a particular business, he secures through modern fact-finding methods. Potentially, he can secure more information and more accurate information and make sounder decisions than could the old man with his guesswork based upon rich experience. Potentially is the word to watch. Let us assume that we are to write copy for a face powder which is made in 5 shades. We are told that shade B is by far the most popular. Our informant's guess is based upon the fact that his wife and daughter use shade B. We accept our information as a fact. If shade B is by far the most popular shade, we shall give it the major emphasis. This emphasis affects our whole art treatment, including the type of girl to be pictured in the main illustration. Our advertisement is a flop because, as we later learn, shade D is the outstandingly popular shade, while shade B accounts for only 8% of the market. The chances are the manufacturer's own sales records would have told us accurately which was the most popular shade. Failing this, a quick check with 5 or 6 wholesale druggists should have indicated it pretty clearly. If the whole proposition were new, if no precedent were available in the manufacturer's or the distributor's sales records, then some other form of research work or preliminary testing should have been employed before we as copywriters were told to stress one shade ahead of the other 4 shades. The great danger lies in the fact that the report of a market survey always looks impressive. When we see a table of findings in which the percentages always total 100%, we are prone to assume that each of the figures which go to make up the 100% total is automatically a true figure. We see that 30 plus 30 plus 20 plus 20 total 100. We forget that 17 plus 31 plus 32 plus 20 also total 100. We must insist that our research methods aim, with honest intent, to establish the true figures. We cannot afford to have our copy fail because we were too ready to assume that the figures were true. And we can't afford to use figures which we ourselves doubt in order to influence someone else into doing something the way we think it should be done. The following is almost certainly a true story. one of the old warhorse pioneers of the advertising agency business, had served a certain account for a number of years. He felt that he needed some extra steam to get the client to okay the new campaign. So he called in a brilliant junior and told him that he wanted him to spend $37,580 on a survey. His orders were that the survey was to be bulky, filling 2 or 3 volumes which were to be bound in leather with the client's name in gold on the cover. The junior executive filled the order. While he was making the survey, the older man went ahead and prepared the campaign he wanted the client to buy. Finally came the day of the presentation. The client was invited to the agency's office. In the middle of the conference table sat the leather-bound copies of the survey. The older man's presentation was, "We don't want to bother you today with a lot of facts and figures and dry statistics. However, we want you to know that what we are showing you is based upon this research job, on which we have spent $37,580. Whereupon he gave the volumes a resounding whack and had them taken out of the room. No one ever saw them again. The account was set for another year. It is a little difficult for the man who has not been out on a survey to challenge the findings of those who have been out. But if the work has not been done with maximum accuracy in every step, it is certain that the job contains some margin of error. The only accurate basis for sales and advertising plans is a knowledge of the facts as they are. We cannot assume that the facts are as we would like them to be, nor intelligently can we hope to force by research the answers we would like to have. Research seeks the truth, and the truth cannot be forced or distorted. It was once pointed out by Gerald Wendt, editorial director of Science Illustrated, that scientists are the only fighters who never use force. They are fighting for the truth. They know that force would defeat their purpose. Dr. Wendt also emphasized that when a firm demands that industrial research pay its own way year by year, that firm is doomed to be outdistanced. The aim of our research, as the basis for setting sales and advertising plans, must be the desire to learn as much of the truth as we can secure. Our efforts must be objective in their approach. We must welcome bad news just as readily as good news. Then, if we are far-sighted, if we are interested in the advertiser's long-time reputation, we shall help him set policies which take into account both the bad news and the good news. The bad news will indicate things to be corrected, not things to be either distorted or ignored. Aesop Glim contends that most copy testing methods are negative in result. At best, they merely help us weed out that which is weakest. Let us start by imagining just about the simplest copy test that could be devised. We prepare 2 different advertisements having exactly the same objective. We show our finished advertisements to 100 different people. We ask each of these people, which of these advertisements do you like better? Or which of these advertisements interests you more? Or which of these advertisements would be more apt to interest you in the merchandise advertised? Whatever our question, 87 people vote for advertisement A and 13 vote for advertisement B. And that is all we actually know. We have interrupted 100 people in their normal pursuits, asked them a question calling for a decision, made them self-conscious. They were either flattered or irritated by our interruption. They were either favorably or unfavorably impressed by our appearance, our tone of voice, the color of our necktie, or our dress. They were therefore stimulated either to get rid of us or to make an impression upon us. They were probably wondering how most other people would vote on this question. Some combination of a dozen wholly artificial factors entered into their voting. Moreover, unless we succeeded in getting a positive vote from each of the first 100 people we accosted, we failed to secure an accurate vote from 100 people. If 16 of the first 100 refused to vote, and we therefore kept asking until we had secured 100 votes, our true vote is 87 for advertisement A, 13 for advertisement B, and 16 not voting. What are we going to do with these 16 votes? Shall we credit 8 to each side? Or what? What we can count on is that 87 out of 116 voted for advertisement A and 13 out of 116 voted for advertisement B, and that each and every voter was to some degree self-conscious. We did not allow him even the privacy of a voting booth. Let us consider a different kind of voting. We take a copy of a magazine and show it to 100 of its readers and ask, which advertisements did you notice? Which advertisements did you read all the way through? We make this kind of test 3 times, at monthly intervals, with a different group of 100 interviewees each time. Advertisements A, B, and C, which we have prepared for duplex widgets, appeared in that order in the 3 issues of the publication we use for our tests. The first month, our advertisement A received 26 noticed votes and 13 read votes. The next month, our advertisement B received 51 noticed votes and 8 read votes. The third month, our advertisement C received 38 noticed votes and 32 read votes. Which of our 3 advertisements is the best? In view of the fact that the magazines we showed our interviewees were special handmade copies containing some faked advertisements, which the interviewees never had seen, but on which they had also voted noticed and read. Further, in view of the fact that each of our advertisements was couponed, our advertisement B, which received the smallest number of read votes, actually pulled the greatest number of coupons of the 3 advertisements. With this method of testing, we have not only made our guinea pigs self-conscious, we have asked them to recall what they did a week or a month previously in a situation which held no great importance for them in the first place. Any method of copy testing which makes the interviewee self-conscious is full of artificial factors. No person is fully himself when he is self-conscious. No person is fully truthful when he is self-conscious. And it is all too easy to make a self-conscious person recall things that didn't ever happen. Suppose we grant the fact that no matter how many artificial factors may be involved, those factors are probably operating to equal advantage and disadvantage for each of the advertisements we are trying to compare. We still know no more than is outlined above. In the first test, we know that 87 were predisposed toward advertisement A and 13 toward advertisement B. We know that one advertisement is by this voting poorer than another. We still don't know that the better is anything more than the lesser of 2 evils. We still don't know what a really powerful advertisement might be. In the second kind of test, we get some comparative voting on advertisements A, B, and C, but with the strange paradox that the advertisement which received the smallest number of read votes was the advertisement which actually pulled the greatest number of coupon returns. Whereupon someone asked the brutal question, is the advertiser spending his good money to get his advertisement read or acted upon? Perhaps RUD is the wrong criterion. The Aesop Glim method of copy testing is key it, run it, and see what they actually do about it when they are not self-conscious. When we prepare an advertisement, we would of course like to know in advance how it is going to work. We naturally hope that it will be more effective than its predecessors. We hope we have produced a more attractive layout, a more arresting headline and illustration, a more compelling piece of copy. Our common sense may tell us that this advertisement is not going to injure the advertiser's reputation. But that's hardly enough. It is to appear in $500 or $5,000 worth of publication space. Is there any way we can trace and measure any part of the results? Obviously, we shouldn't continue running one advertisement after another solely on blind faith. Even better, is there any method by which we can pre-test our advertisement before we shoot the whole works? To set up a copy testing or pre-testing method, we would aim to be scientific by seeking some mathematical yardstick of effectiveness and by basing our mathematics upon a large enough sample to be dependable. We would aim to secure our reactions from people under conditions in which they were not self-conscious. We would aim to get our information on a basis which did not require any memory feats on the part of our guinea pigs. For the sake of argument, let's agree that we have a true test of an advertisement's power only when our prospect is voluntarily reading our advertisement under conditions essentially of his own making. If, under such conditions, advertisement A induces 14 out of every 100 prospects to do something we want them to do, while advertisement B influences only 7 people in that direction, it seems pretty obvious that we are approaching a mathematical rating of 2 to 1 in favor of advertisement A over advertisement B. We can now analyze and compare these 2 advertisements and, on the basis of our best judgment, prepare advertisement C. If advertisement C shows a power of 16, compared with advertisements A and B, We start analyzing again to try to discover which factors made it more powerful than advertisement A. If advertisement C shows a power of only 10, we analyze the three advertisements to discover what elements made advertisement C more powerful than advertisement B, but less powerful than advertisement A. Then we proceed to prepare advertisement D. In the normal course of events, this takes time. We don't get this kind of information overnight or without cost. However, it's worth both time and money. And if our proposition doesn't lend itself to any form of keyed testing, then all we can do is run one advertisement after another at full cost, but always with the attitude that each and every advertisement is a new experiment. Obviously, we are not going to have any information on which to base our analysis and experimenting unless our advertisements induce our prospects to take some action we can measure. The simplest and surest is send in the coupon. If of two advertisements that have had an equal chance, advertisement number 1 produces more coupons than advertisement number 2, we know a fact. If over a period of time, we have developed an advertisement formula which consistently produces coupon returns in profitable volume, we know we are over in the profit column. All we need to do then is to continue experimenting and pedigreeing our formula until we are getting twice as many coupons as we hitherto considered profitable. Sometimes a proposition does not lend itself to the use of coupons. It will more often than you might suppose. If you can't use a coupon, offer a booklet or some other inducement in the wind-up of your copy. Let them ask for booklet A in advertisement A and booklet B in advertisement B, even though it is the same booklet which is to be sent to all who reply to either advertisement. Or invite them to go to the dealer for a sample or a demonstration. When there is no slightest basic reason for either a coupon or any other kind of offer, invent one, no matter how artificial. And use that totally artificial device in at least some of your advertising until you come to know what you are doing through the traceable activities of people who were not self-conscious at the time they took those actions. For a practical method of pre-testing our copy, we must achieve a combination of the standards set forth above, with reasonable economy. We seek the reactions of typical prospects under conditions which do not make them self-conscious and which do not call upon their memories. At the same time, we are trying to test our advertisements at minimum cost before spending the full price for the more expensive space in which they are ultimately destined to appear. There are at least 3 methods of doing this. If we are planning to advertise equipment or materials to industrial or professional men, we can make each of the advertisements we want to test into a folder. We can key these folders, just as we will ultimately key the publication advertisements. We must be sure that each folder gets sent to the same number of prospects, and that the number is in each case large enough to give us dependable answers. If our ultimate mediums will be the more expensive metropolitan newspapers or national magazines, we can first run our advertisements in small-town newspapers or smaller magazines, provided these have essentially the same kind of circulation. A fairly recent development is testing through split runs, which a few publications are able to offer. A split run means, for example, that in a single issue our advertisement A will appear in 1/3 of the total circulation, advertisement B in another third, and advertisement C in the remaining third. If these are accurate thirds, we can know that all 3 advertisements have had an equal chance. Same kind of readers, same number of readers, same position, same time element. With 3 different keys, we have our basis of comparison. We can't give him a book. He has a book. That old joke probably has some kind of parallel in the firm that won't advertise because we tried it once and it didn't work. Advertising always works, provided the goods or services fit the customer's needs. Provided the advertising message is true, accurate, and complete. Provided the advertising campaign is large enough for its purpose. Just those 3 provisions. Advertising cannot pay out if the goods or services are somehow inadequate. It may create an inquiry or a first try, but there will be no repeats and therefore no paying out. The advertising message cannot be true, accurate, and complete unless the necessary time and money have been invested to get all the facts straight before the copy is even started. Mere name display, keeping the name in the marketplace, always has its value, but the advertiser is definitely extravagant if that's all he expects from his advertising dollar. Guesswork as to any or all of the needed facts is even more extravagant. The gun goes off with a good loud pop. But what price glory if you don't hit the target? Some firms are afraid not to advertise. They're afraid of what their salesmen or their competitors might say. But many of these same firms are also afraid of the cost of fact-finding. So they do a little advertising with an inaccurate or incomplete copy story and let it go at that. Then they wonder why their advertising efforts are not more resultful. When the going's tough, the advertising budget gets sliced first. And no matter how the going, they always greet the advertising manager and the copywriter with a jaundiced eye. We can be sorry for the firm that hasn't yet learned how to make its advertising pay out. But we must be even sorrier for ourselves and more self-protective. Since we are blamed when the copy doesn't pull, we have the right to refuse to make bricks without straw. In the long run, you'll eat more regularly by such a refusal early in the game than by weak compliance and postponing of the fateful day. You are a writer, an interpreter, a person who puts words together, a coiner of fortunate phrases, perhaps. You are not an inventor of facts. You have the right to demand the facts, all the facts pertinent to the situation about which you are to write. The facts you need are known, or they can be established. If they are known, make somebody tell them to you. Incidentally, if you have the slightest doubt as to their accuracy, get the facts in writing. If your authority won't put them in writing for you, write up your notes of the interview and ask him to put his okay on your memorandum. That gets him down to earth. If the facts need to be established, insist that the necessary time and money be budgeted for the fact-finding. Maybe you'll do the work yourself. Maybe you'll need help. Be sure to get the best help. There's no such thing as an almost fact. When the facts are established, the copy all but writes itself. Moreover, everyone concerned now knows the advertising program is no longer on a hit-or-miss basis. It has an agreed objective. It will not be expected to do either more or less than its size permits. The copywriter who demands facts, who shouts that he is an interpreter of facts but not an inventor of facts, is doing nothing more than standing up for his rights. If you don't do this, you're a weakling. Don't come around asking why you're not making more rapid progress in your career. If you do fight for the facts, two pleasant things are quite apt to happen. More profits for the advertiser, more money for you. Suddenly you're a hero instead of the whipping boy. Once upon a time, there was an advertising manager in a food factory. He was best known, in fact, famous, for his ability to sit on his shoulder blades with his feet on the desk. He was rated extra able as an advertising manager, yet few people ever saw him in any other posture or engaged in any occupation other than reading magazines, newspapers, and business papers, unless he was merely looking thoughtfully out the window. There was one publication representative who finally got up the courage to ask this advertising manager how he ever got his work done. And the answer was, "I have only one job, really. That is to understand the publications in which we advertise. We have a good advertising agency. All I try to do is to be sure that the copy fits the publication in each and every case. I spend my time trying to understand what each editor is trying to do to his readers, and therefore what kind of readers he has secured, and what mood he gets them into when they read his publication. What the media man buys is a matter of primary concern to the copywriter. Primary means both first and fundamental. While we have the dictionary out, media is the advertising man's plural of medium. Mr. Webster prefers mediums. A medium, for our purposes, is anything that acts intermediately in delivering our message to our audience. Publications, direct mail, blotters, radio, billboards, car cards, etc. These are all mediums of contact, each with a particular group of people. In most cases, we buy a known audience in a predictable mood. The editor has made that possible. For quick contrast, think of the New Yorker and the Baker's Weekly, your morning newspaper and a racing form, the Ladies' Home Journal and Business Week. In such publications, it is relatively easy to understand what types of readers have been attracted, why the readers are interested, the mood induced by each publication, and therefore which of our sales arguments we are to stress and in what tone of voice. The media buyer, most of the time, supplies the copywriter with a known audience in a predictable mood. If he does his job properly, he gives the copywriter a true picture of living, feeling, emoting human beings. Not all publications are as individual in their editorial appeal as the New Yorker. Many are not as clearly selective as the Baker's Weekly. But the media man's job is not complete unless he has done the whole job for every knowable medium that is to be used. The media man's major job has nothing to do with statistics or rates. Rates are taken care of by competition. In terms of statistics, Fibber-McGee was 100% right when he damned some announcement of 2% people per car, because he and you and I have never seen half a person. Are we to write half an advertisement for half a reader? Someday we'll probably have yardsticks which measure audience moods in terms of mental, moral, physical, and spiritual types. In terms of instincts, senses, and emotions. Then we'll really know how to write our copy, and thereby how to call upon more and more of the still untapped power of advertising. At several points above, there is the indication that not all mediums are knowable and predictable in the terms we seek. The exceptions are those for which we must build our own audiences, direct mail or radio. In direct mail, we build our audience by selecting the names of people whom we know something about, by whatever standards the job dictates. Our mailing piece then sets its own mood. Keep this mood-setting requirement in mind. The right feel of the paper, for instance. In radio, we build our own audience and mood through the type of show we decide to produce. It's certainly our own failure entirely if we can't match the mood of our advertising message to the mood our show creates. But we must never forget that when we buy 30 minutes on WOB at 7 p.m., that's all we've bought. We have not bought an audience. Perhaps a great many people have been in the habit of turning to WOB at 7, but it's a habit we can quickly kill unless the character of our show holds and attracts and builds for itself an audience of the kind of people who are prospects for our wares. And quite likely there's a good show on WOC at that very same hour. Those of us who didn't get into active service saw them in the newsreels. Tracer bullets. Perhaps every 10th shot was phosphorescent. The gunner soon knew whether he was on the target. We'll assume that most advertising managers and copywriters want to know whether their copy is on the target. Those who don't may have the rest of today off. Coupons are the ideal tracer bullets. When your copy brings in the coupons, the right kind and the right quantity, you know you're on the target. When it doesn't, you still know what you're aiming for and you adjust your sights. You keep on testing until the coupons do begin to come in. Second to coupons when they don't fit the situation at hand is copy keyed by some such device as Write for Bulletin 17. With couponed or otherwise keyed copy, you know that a certain specific number of people saw your advertisement, read it through, and acted on it. By that token, you are also reasonably sure that a good many others saw and read your advertisement, even though they didn't take the traceable step of writing in. If your copy was effective for those who replied, you can be pretty certain it also made some impression on all who saw it but didn't reply. Perhaps they went direct to your dealer or distributor. Perhaps they were softened up, made more receptive for the next advertisement or for solicitation by your dealer or your own salesman. When you do coupon or key, don't count the immediately traceable replies as your total harvest. It has still done to the rest of your audience all it would have done if it hadn't been keyed. What about the copy situations that don't lend themselves to any form of keying? Can we still use tracer bullets of some kind? The answer is that you frequently can, and frequently means more often than is now being done. If you really want to know whether your copy is effective, there is usually some way to find out. The first step removed from a reply direct to the advertiser is the request for action to be completed at your dealers. Invite your reader to go to a specific kind of store and take a specific kind of action, asking for a specific booklet, demonstration, test, sample, etc. The word specific is repeated intentionally. Don't be vague or indefinite about where your prospect is to go or what he's to do. Then check your dealer or distributor to see if it's happening. Suppose you're not advertising a finished product. Instead, it's a material, a piece of equipment, or a process used in the making of someone else's finished product. In this case, Aesop Glim believes you should try in two directions. First, reconsider the keying of your advertisements to get an informative booklet into the hands of your reader. Second, and simultaneously, supply and feature in your advertising a tag or other identification mark concerning the use of your product, equipment, or process in the making of the other firm's finished product. It is obviously up to you to make your identification mark an asset. You can't expect a free ride. It is also Aesop Glim's opinion that this broad field of materials, equipment, and processes has too much advertising without terminal facilities. We see too many advertisements that boast of the excellence of this material, equipment, process, but never tell the reader how to go about even beginning to commence to enjoy its benefits. Copy without terminal facilities is copy filled mostly with the manufacturer's claims. This kind of copy fails to tell such things as, 1. What independent laboratories or tests have substantiated these claims? 2. What well-known designers or stylists have used it? 3. What well-established manufacturers are using it? 4. What reputable dealers or distributors are handling the products made from it? In most cases, the desire to use tracer bullets in your advertising demands that you give your reader copy with terminal facilities. Show him how to do something about what you offer. There is another kind of tracer bullet. The $64 question had it. Man of distinction had it. It is the copy idea, theme, phrase, or tagline that catches the public fancy and gets into general conversation. When that happens, you have your tracer bullet. There is an interesting parallel in the two examples cited above. The $64 question was born on the radio, man of distinction in magazines. Yet Eversharp earned $1 million worth of free publicity outside of radio circles. And Calvert, which, like all liquors, may not be advertised on the radio, won $1 million worth of free radio time via our leading radio comedians. When there is no effective method of planting tracer bullets in your advertising, you still have 3 courses left. 1. Continue to advertise just because the preparation of advertisements is fun, and so is the pride of showing the proofs to your family and friends. 2. Discontinue advertising. 3. Employ a research organization to interview prospects, customers, dealers, wholesalers, distributors et al. Let them tell you how much effect your advertising has thus far had, and how much work in which directions remains to be done. You don't need to guess about advertising, you can know. If your copy can't carry tracer bullets, then use market researchers to go look at the target and report on your gunnery. Tracer bullets or espionage? You're best off when you use both. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to check our link in the description, where you'll find many other fundamental advertising books in different languages. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more persuasion and marketing-related content. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video.